Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us in the final event of this track. I'll be your host and moderator for this session, George Valdez. For those that might know, I'm head of marketing at Monograph. I'm so excited to be joined by Shane Balcom, who's the managing director at Rossmann Architecture. This is going to be a great conversation around the firm, how they're organized, and a little bit about how they think about operational cadences.
So I joined the architect firm a little over a year ago. It was roughly, as per the slide, it was established in 2012. So we're coming up our 9th year, I believe. Husband and wife shop. Eric and Sarah Rossmann are the founders of the company, and they decided about a year and a half ago that they were really getting stuck on scaling the company sort of beyond a couple of million and 14 people. And they wanted to either go backwards or forwards, and they had to decide, which direction to go. And both of them are in their 30s, George, and I think they decided that it made way more sense to try to grow the business, and they recognized they needed some help to do it. So they engaged with an executive search firm, Perry Martell, and long story short, they found me, and here I am.
Your entry into the firm was pretty unique with your background, right? I'm curious about, what happened how was the company structured before you came in, and what kind of changes did you make or help influence after you joined?
Yeah, it was really neat too. I sat through the last one with Lake Flatto, and it was fascinating because it was nice to hear somebody that sort of, on even a bigger scale, talk about the same sort of things that I changed and implemented here. And funny enough, I reached out to both of them on LinkedIn already and asked if I could have some time, because I'd love to understand the next step from 35 to 135 people. But we built. I changed the pod structure completely. I have a founder CEO that is an entrepreneur first. He's an architect by education, but he really loves the entrepreneurial space, and he reads and digests a lot specific to hypergrowth tech companies. And my last 15 years have been spent in software. So he went and looked for a guy sort of out of the industry. The first time you and I met, we talked about me as an outsider. He really did go outside the vertical to find somebody to, with some experience around scaling businesses, and cared less about the vertical and more about just the innovative side to scaling a business. When I got here, like a lot of small firms, the people were wearing many hats. People were very reactive. A lot of the data necessary to make the right foreshadowability when it comes to strategy and just revenue decisions and stuff weren't in play. And I recognized that the tech deck on its own, like there wasn't a CRM in place. There wasn't any kind of a Salesforce.com type of tool either. There was just some pretty obvious tech deck stuff that needed to be put in play, and then some structure and cadences given to the organization in order to, basically swim lane everybody and, get them doing, what their passion was, what they were, educated in, what their field was. So taking away back office stuff from my principal architects, developing a director of ops role, developing, I think that's the next slide, but developing just the support staff around what we call the architect practices. And, long story short, it didn't take very long to find out that we had a whole bunch of work, right in front of us with existing relationships, and had the ability to change our top line without actually doing any outbound BD at all. So, a lot of our growth was based purely on cleaning up process, building some really good cadences. And, I mentioned this to you the last time we met. Culture is always king with me. And, I'm a firm believer that happy folks are more efficient folks. So we really worked on the one win, all win, and, a kind of alignment even with our bonus structure and stuff as we hit my first full fiscal, which started in March.
I think people's ears might have perked up with the bonus structure side. Is there anything unique that you were thinking through when developing that?
Well, funny enough, I took it from sort of old school thinking around software sales people. And, we just came up with targets. We came up with big team targets. We decided for year one, we really liked the idea of not making them practice specific or stream specific. So we built some targets around what we thought would be a successful year and, incentivize the staff specific to base salaries on a straight percentage on meeting goals. So it's pretty exciting. It's got everybody on the same page. Everybody benefits when we hit our targets. And like I told you last time, if anything, we underestimated our growth trajectory, and our targets have become very attainable. So, and that was based on 2.5 times growth, and we're sitting somewhere around 3.5x 13 months in.
Is there something about you mentioned a cadence? Do you what does that mean to you? Because I think that word might be somewhat foreign to the folks in the audience, in a sense. Like, it's kind of a different way to talk about rhythms, essentially.
Well,
yeah.
Sorry about that. So I'll pull this slide up, and this isn't a perfect depiction, but it gives some idea. But a lot of what I do is make sure that we're having regular rhythms. And another thing I took from sort of my sales executive background was what I call forecast rhythms, but specifically with closed business around invoicing. So I work with the principals every week, and we have forecast structure. To be very specific, it's Wednesdays. And it just helps us understand, at any given time in our firm, we have about 80 active projects. So it just helps us make sure, I have, now, thanks to Monograph, 4, 5, 6 months of a view when it comes to, my billability. And, it's just, my leadership team, the structure around that, the fact that we build a collaborative sort of, it is top down, but it's a culture driven around sort of like design centric culture, collaborative culture. It's a culture of empowerment. And even though it's vertical, it's, I told you this last time, I believe there's 2 premises: either everyone matters or no one matters. And I drink the Kool-Aid that everyone matters. And that means within the cadences, because these cadences are trickled down, everyone gets, the same respect as the owner, but everybody also is held accountable in the same manner as a senior executive. And, it just helps us align on our mission and our values. And, in order to make sure that you keep that static, you got to be very habitual. And, we laughed last time you and I spoke. I think I made a comment about the fact I'm not that smart. I'm just really darn good at doing the same thing every day and every week. And that's what I love to do. Like, based on this slide, every day we're in Monograph and Salesforce, making sure we know what's going on. Every day my teams have 10-minute stand-ups and make sure everybody, is on the same page with what it is we're after. Our weekly cadences with our leadership team. And, even to get more specific within that, one of our key calls to actions is what we call, under the table. So, we're very transparent. Is there anything going on that needs to be pulled out from under the table and, put in the spotlight and aligned on? The Monograph side, again, around just the forecast stability. And, I'm really excited with some of the new things coming out, because as you know, I got on the Monograph bandwagon pretty early, not long after your MVP, and, knew some of the upside from a feature set was sort of future dated, but, no regrets. It's been a key component to the data side of scaling what I would still refer to as a hyper growth company. Like, as of today, we're 33 people, and 13 months ago we were 14.
Wow. Is there anything in that growth where you've had to rethink any of these cadences because of that growth? There's the saying that an organization at 5 people sort of breaks down at 30, or there's like these kind of like tried and true or numbers, right? That where communication becomes an overhead.
Yeah, well, I've been talking to Eric a lot about this lately, because we're getting out of phase 1 faster than I expected. And my gut check indicator is usually top line stuff. So I needed to build something that could take us from 2 to 10 million, but we're going to get there, gosh, almost a year faster than expected. And from 10 to 30 million, I do feel like there is a bit of a pivot structure wise. And, I'm still very new to the architect space, but so far, most of what I've applied logic wise is working. And I'm under the assumption right now that around 10 million, we're going to need a bit of a different build. And, that could be growing the operations team a little bit more, maybe fleshing out the proposal team. The nice thing about the scalability of the build right now, specific to the practices, is they're kind of plug and play. We can add more pods to our structure relatively easy. As the trick is, can we support them? And obviously, and this was touched on with Scott earlier. Can we attract the right talent?
When it comes to operations, do you define it very? You mentioned a little bit about being able to remove some of the work that was there before for the project teams, accounts receivable, a lot of the financial operation side stuff. We've come across this idea of also design operations. Is there also a different lens to that talks more about how to improve the, BIM is another way to kind of wrap that around or something like that? Do you have that also embedded in how you think about operations?
Yeah, absolutely. And operations owns all that. So, back to the how we structure and certainly try to keep our billable teams nimble. We remove most of that. We formulate, the rhythms in BIM, in operations, the exact same way I do as an MD. So, Andrew Alajure is the director of ops here, and him and his team's gone from, we pulled him out of billable and made him the director of ops 13 months ago, and now he's got a staff of 4. And, the reason for that is to continue to keep pace with, our growing billable side of the house, George, when it comes to, making sure they don't get bogged down in administrative functions. And that could be BIM related, that could be BD related, that could be proposal writing, it could be HR. We've removed all the usual things and isolated them in back office functions. And, even as we start to scale out a region, our plan is to leave them very centralized here at our headquarters with the idea that, we can always just add bandwidth to the back office for scalability.
If there was one kind of takeaway you would leave for everybody in the audience that you felt like, you should try to do today, that would have a substantial impact, what would that be?
So basically, what's the biggest change I've made that I think is interesting? Yeah, that's a good question. I don't know enough about architecture other than what I've been told through my colleagues here that are architects that have had experience at other firms. But I feel like how we're organizing and building is very disruptive and very sort of counterculture to, multiple decades of how a typical architect firm was built. And I feel that, and thanks to Monograph and different things I've done and the connections I've made now globally, I do feel like there's a big movement towards this innovative thinking in the architect or even the AEC space around, this can be designed different. Staff are interested in these differences. It's not about spending 25 years now to finally become a partner. How do I get compensated well earlier in my career, and how do I build that structure? And am I going to get the autonomy to do what I want because I want to design. I don't want to manage people potentially. I don't want to hang my own shingle one day, and I don't want to wait 25 years to be a partner, but I want to be part of a dynamic, fast growing, culture centric environment. And I don't know if that was really one answer. It was more of a generalized sort of statement, George, but yeah.
I think that was really amazing. I think it's going to resonate with a lot of people in the audience because I think they also strive for the same. With that, we are kind of short on time at this moment, but Shane, I want to thank you so much for kind of walking us through the operations of Rossmann, the impact you've had. I think some of the stats that you presented are going to have people reaching out to you because there's some secret sauce or magic that I'm sure that they want to understand that you're doing over there. Really appreciate the time you've given us.
Yeah, well, thanks so much. And I've really enjoyed the whole day. You've had some great speakers, so it was a pleasure to be a part of that.
I love that you said movement. So we'll take that and we'll figure out what to do with it.
I believe that's going on. Like, you'd be surprised. I've connected with people in Europe, people all over the US. As you know, we're a Canadian firm, and we're just a small regional Canadian firm. But we have big aspirations, and it is really neat to know that that there's other firms in the world that agree with what it is we're trying to accomplish. So I really like that, George. So thanks very much.
Yeah, thank you.
See you, sir.
Cheers.
Bye.